The Aryan Brotherhood, often abbreviated as AB, is one of the most notorious white supremacist prison gangs in the United States. Formed in the 1960s, it emerged within the California prison system during a period of intense racial tension and institutional upheaval. Over time, it evolved from a small, racially aligned inmate group into a highly organized criminal enterprise with influence extending beyond prison walls. Understanding its origins, structure, ideology, and criminal activity provides insight into both the gang itself and the broader dynamics of prison gangs in the United States. The Aryan Brotherhood was founded in 1964 at San Quentin State Prison. The 1960s were marked by racial polarization across American society, and prisons reflected these broader social tensions. Within California's prison system, inmates increasingly organized along racial lines for protection and power. At the time, African American and Latino prison gangs were becoming more structured and assertive. In response, some white inmates formed a group initially called the Bluebird Gang, which later evolved into the Aryan Brotherhood. The group's founding purpose was self-protection and maintaining racial dominance within the prison population. However, it quickly became more than a defensive association. It adopted an aggressive posture and a white supremacist ideology that would define its identity for decades. The Brotherhood embraces white supremacist beliefs, drawing on neo-Nazi imagery and rhetoric. Members often adopt symbols such as shamrocks, swastikas, lightning bolts associated with the Nazi SS imagery, and the numbers 666. The gang's rhetoric emphasizes racial segregation, white unity, and hostility toward non-white inmates and rival gangs. While its ideology is rooted in racism, it is important to note that many law enforcement officials and scholars argue that criminal profit and power are often more central to the gang's operations than pure ideological commitment. The white supremacist ideology functions both as an unifying identity and as a mechanism for loyalty and recruitment. Unlike loosely organized street gangs, the Brotherhood developed a highly structured internal hierarchy. Leadership is often referred to as a commission, typically composed of senior members serving long or life sentences. These leaders issue orders that are followed by lower-ranking members inside prisons and by associates on the outside. Membership is limited and selective. Unlike some gangs that recruit broadly, the Brotherhood historically maintained a relatively small core membership, often estimated in the low hundreds nationwide. Prospective members typically undergo a probationary period and must demonstrate loyalty, often through acts of violence. Communication within the gang has included coded letters, legal mail, exploitation, and intermediaries outside prison. The organization has shown an ability to coordinate activities across multiple facilities, including those under the jurisdiction of the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation and the federal system. Although it began in California state prisons, the Brotherhood expanded into federal institutions. By the 70s and 80s, it had a significant presence within facilities operated by the Federal Bureau of Prisons. The gang developed what became known as the Federal Aryan Brotherhood, FAB, sometimes referred to simply as the AB in federal custody. Despite being a relatively small percentage of the prison population, the gang gained a reputation for extreme violence and strict discipline. Law enforcement officials have described it as disproportionately responsible for inmate homicides in certain periods. Over time, the Aryan Brotherhood became deeply involved in organized criminal activity. These activities included drug trafficking, particularly meth and heroin, extortion within prisons, murder and assault, conspiracy to commit racketeering, identity theft, and fraud schemes conducted through outside associates. While many of these crimes occur inside prison walls, the gang has long maintained connections with external criminal networks. Members and associates on the outside facilitate drug distribution, money laundering, and communication between incarcerated leaders and free world operatives. Because leaders would often serve life sentences, their authority can remain stable for decades, allowing for continuity in criminal enterprises. The Brotherhood enforces a strict code of conduct. Members are expected to follow orders without question, and betrayal or cooperation with law enforcement is punishable by death. This culture of silence, often referred to as no snitching, reinforces cohesion and fear. Violence is central to maintaining authority. Assaults and murders are sometimes ordered to settle debts, enforce rules, or retaliate against rivals. Such actions serve both practical and symbolic purposes, eliminating threats while reinforcing the gang's reputation for ruthlessness. At the same time, the organization has experienced internal power struggles. Leadership disputes and factional divisions have occasionally resulted in violence within the group itself. Law enforcement efforts over the past 2 decades have significantly disrupted the Aryan Brotherhood's leadership. High-profile prosecutions, isolation of leaders, and enhanced prison intelligence units have reduced its centralized control in some regions. Nevertheless, prison gangs are adaptive. Even when leadership is removed, networks often persist through decentralized cells and outside associates. Additionally, the broader issue of racial polarization and gang formation in prisons continues to create environments in which such groups can survive.